So now we're going to talk about the 5-star standards. This is about visual communication principles. These are the 5-star standards. First one is less is more. The second one is about grouping, then pyramids, then repetition, and lastly, focal point. So again, these are in your book. So there's notes about the 5-star standards on page 4. So if you want to make any notes or ideas, you can put it in that in the grid on page 4. Starting with less is more. So what does this mean? Well, there's 3 points to that. The first is about keeping it simple and uncluttered. Sometimes we feel that we've got to put everything on the display or on the stand or in the picture, because it's like, yeah, but if they don't see this, then how will they know that I do that? And I'm going to show you reasons why actually less is more can help you. So keeping it simple and uncluttered helps. Have you ever walked into a shop? Again, it's about that feeling where you've walked in and you've thought, wow, this is amazing. It looks like Aladdin's cave. It's absolutely full. It might be that like that sweetie shop effect where you walk in and go, oh, you're like a kid in a sweet shop. And then have you ever walked out and not purchased anything? And you think of shops where you've done that, where you absolutely love it, full to the rafters with stuff, but it's just too much. You go in and you think, wow, I like that, I like that, I like that. And sometimes it's that kid in the sweet shop where you get presented with so many choices that you actually just, you get overwhelmed. You just don't know, should I buy the cola cubes? Oh, should I buy a lolly? Should I get sherbet? All that kind of thing. And it could be, well, it might be that you buy everything, but often you just get like overwhelmed, and it may be that you just walk out and buy nothing. And it's not because everything isn't wonderful and beautiful and all that kind of thing. It's just your brain can get overwhelmed and you just can't think. And then you get home and you think, oh, I've got my friend's birthday next week. That would have been brilliant for their birthday. But you just, at the time, you couldn't think about it. So keeping things simple, that less is more and uncluttered, can help with overwhelm. It's also about curating choices. At the end of the day, you're the expert. So you can help people by curating the choices. I have walked into shops before where they've got lots of things. So for example, I was lucky enough to go to Canada earlier on this year with my business. I got some funding from the Department of International Trade and I wanted to bring souvenir back with us. And I walked in this shop and it was fabulous. They had all sorts of things in there. Actually, it was a bit much. So I went with my friend who was on the trip as well. We looked around and then I said to the shop owner, I'm looking for something to take back for my daughter. And I gave him some ideas of the kind of thing I was looking for. And I ended up, actually, I should have had it over here, with this mousse, this soft toy mousse head, which was just fantastic. He said, oh, I think I've just got the thing. And he brought it to us and I bought it. When I left the shop, my friend said to us, wow, she says, I'm amazed by you. And I was like, why? And she said, well, you asked him what it was that you wanted. And I was like, well, yeah, he's the expert. It's his shop. It didn't occur to her to ask the expert. But I suppose because I do this all the time, I know that the shopkeepers, the people that have got the display stand, often I will have a conversation with them and say, I'm thinking about this because you know what fits the target audience. You can suggest that. However, people might not engage with that conversation. So sometimes it's about curating those choices. And again, I will show you as we go through examples of curating choices. And it's about sometimes that hero product or service. So it might be that you want to highlight one thing as the hero product. It doesn't mean that you're not going to sell other things, but it might be that for whatever reason, and it might be to do with the time of year. It might be to do with, that there's a special promotion, or it might be to do with the fact that you've got a lot of stock and you need to move it on. it becomes a hero product or a hero service, and it's the thing that you then kind of like highlight. An example of that would be if you've ever been into, say, a coffee shop and you've gone in and you've thought that you are just going to go in to get a cup of coffee. And then as you've got to the till, there might be this beautiful cake in a dome right beside the till. And you think, wow, and it's normally like that really stunning cake. And you think, ooh, go on then, I'll have a piece of that. You know, so they've managed to kind of upsell by visually, you've kind of seen this thing, but they've positioned it. Sometimes with a hero product, again, that less is more. Have you seen where you get the glass domes? You'll get a plinth with a glass dome. So you could take one product and put a glass dome on it, put a spotlight on it, or put it, you know, a picture frame around it or whatever. But that's then highlighted as being something special, something that you want to promote. So that's about less is more. The next one is about grouping things for maximum impact, because it makes things easier to find. So your buyers, it makes it easier for them to buy if they can find what it is they're looking for. And when you group things, you are displaying things by category. And you can do this by any particular way. Again, there's not one size fits all. And this is quite a good thing, really, if you do lots of pop-up displays, because you can change the way you do things. And in fact, you know, when I train people, if they're at Living North, I'll say, if you do your display and you feel like on day one that people aren't looking at things, observe people's behavior, then when you know the principles, you can move that display around, because what you're doing is looking for clues, looking for the way that people are searching or buying. And there's not one size fits all, because every event's different. But when you display by categories, for example, if it's on the run up to Christmas, one of the categories might be pocket money toys. It might be that if you know that people are looking for Secret Santas, people might be shopping via a category. They might be looking for a £5 present or a £10 present because they've got a budget in mind. Or they might be looking for something for men. You know, a category might be, you know, for the man in their life, they might be looking for something for them. So it's thinking about your target audience and how they're going to search for things. So for example, this scarf, you know, if I was going to look for this scarf, I wouldn't necessarily walk into a jeweler's or a shoe shop. Yeah. If I went into a department store to look for it, I would then be looking for where the women's wear department is. And then I'd be looking for the accessories. And then I might search by colour or style or material or price, that kind of thing. It's easier to categorize stuff online. So when people have websites, often there is that search bar, you know, the tool bit where you can actually filter things down. So you will have done this yourself. You'll have automatically done it where it's like, do you want to look for the cheapest item? Do you want to look for it by colour, size, all of that kind of thing? So that's what grouping is all about. And pyramids. Say that the Egyptians knew something. So pyramids and triangular displays. This is one of the things, I'm going to teach you a few things today that once you know about it, this is hidden in plain sight. Once you know about it, you will keep seeing pyramids and triangles everywhere. Triangular displays, symmetrical or asymmetrical, are more appealing to the eye. It's been proven. I'm not going to go into that side of things, but just trust me, you know, you will see this all around the place. Odd numbers are more appealing as well. And it's interesting, when I did some online training, somebody went off, you know, when we had the little break, and she came back into the room and she went, I've looked around my house and actually I've grouped things, ornaments, and then, you know, bottles of perfume and that as pyramids and triangles, just automatically. So if you're the person that, you know, sees that wonky picture on the wall straight away, some of this stuff you might be intuitively doing without even realizing it. Repetition. So repetition comes into play in a whole host of reasons. So if you've got the same item, you don't feel that you can't display the same product alongside each other, because sometimes people need to see the same thing, or even in a photograph. Ideally, you want to position it exactly the same. It's that repeat thing. The repetition also comes from, I mean, it might be something to do with this learning. So for example, Silva, as I've worked with Silva before, she's learned some of this stuff before. It may be though that she didn't, on the first time she took one thing away, but the next time she hears it, she takes a different thing away. So when you're putting social media posts out, for example, you might think that people have seen things, but not always. They don't always see it, or they might have to see it a few times before they take notice. So repetition's really important. And don't think that, you know, that other people see things that which you think, oh, I've already said that once, they can't see that again. You'll be surprised how many people miss it the first time round. And the last one's focal point. So they reckon that you have less than 3 seconds to capture people's attention. I honestly believe now that could be 3, like whatever it is, nanoseconds. You know, on your phone, people just scroll so fast now. We expect things to happen quickly. If a website doesn't load, how long do you give it before you go, oh, I can't be bothered with that, and you move on? You've got to capture people's attention. Focal point is where your eyes focus first. So imagine when you walk into a room, for example, picture this in your head. You walk into a room. It may be that the first thing you see in that room is the TV. It might be that you see the picture frame, the picture on the wall. It might be that you see a mirror. It might be that you see a fire. It might be that there's people in the room, so you see them first. What you need to be doing is, when you've got your display stand, is looking at it and thinking, where do my eyes go first? What am I focusing on? Because if I'm focusing on that, other people possibly are too. And it's worth checking it from different angles as well. Because what you see if you walk into a room coming through one door won't be the same as what you see coming into a room through a different door. So I'll give you some reasons behind the focal point, and it ties in with when we do the secret sense strategy. So if you walk into a room and the TV's on, your eyes might be drawn towards that because something's moving. There's illumination from the TV. There's noise coming from the TV. It might be that you look at a picture, and it might be because, well, it might be because the picture's wonky on the wall, actually. I never thought about that one. It might be that. It might be, though, that the picture has got, like, you know, it's colourful, or you love the design, or it might be that you hate the design, but it's drawn your attention to it. It might be a mirror, because people do actually like to see themselves quite often. I did some work experience. At the time, it was called Pronto Print when I was at school. And I was working in this printers when you used to have to go and pay to get your photocopying done at these places. And people would walk past, and the guy there said to us, now, don't think it's weird if you see people standing in the, like, looking in the window and kind of doing this stuff. He said, because they're actually looking at their reflection. And I was like, all right, I hadn't realized that that's what was going on. So yeah, people do, well, some people don't like looking in mirrors, but you know, it does capture your attention. And again, if you've got a product that's, for example, some jewelry, it might be that you want a mirror on your stand for that display. Mirrors can also be used if the back of something's different to the front. So for example, a mug, a cup, where the display runs all the way around, you might want to put a mirror behind it so you can see the back of that display, that kind of thing. Now, the other thing is, like, fire, you know, that warmth of the fire, the glow of the fire, that might be what attracts your attention. It might be the aroma as well. So lots of different reasons why we see different things. want to tell you a story about when I did this training. So one lady that was on the training, at this point, she had a light bulb moment, or what I tend to call them is a moment of clarity. And she went, oh, just realised what the focal point is. It's the bin. So the place that she works in an environment, a workshop environment, and she put the bin at the door. The reason being, every night when she left, she tidied up, she cleaned up, and she emptied the bin. So from a customer services point of view, she was keeping that place immaculate, which was fantastic. What she was doing, though, was viewing it through her eyes and not through a customer's eyes. So having the bin beside the door made perfect sense that it was the last thing that she did. It reminded her every night to put the bin out. However, it was the first thing the customer saw. So that's why focal points are really important. So this is where I started my journey with visual merchandising, with Powder Butterfly, with Corinne Lewis-Ward, because she put a call out on social media to say, I'm doing this display, can anybody help us? Well, I'm doing this exhibition, can anybody help us with my stand, with my table display? And I reached out to her. Now, I, at that point, wasn't teaching this. I knew all of this stuff, but I didn't realise what it was that I knew. And I will say that to you, you will each have superpowers. The thing that you just do that you don't think's unique, but other people really value it. So I said, okay, well, yeah, I can come and teach you this stuff. Put your table, display the way that you would normally do it, because I'll show you how to change it. Every time you've got to do the display. So if I just came and did it for you, I felt like she wouldn't be learning. She needed to experience it, because this was on a dining room table, but another place she might have a square table, a bigger area, a smaller area. So by knowing the principles, that meant that she could then alter it to suit. So this was our display before. And then this was our display afterwards. So all that this took was a bit of time, a bit of energy, and a bit of kind of experience, a bit of knowledge, applying the principles. We didn't spend any more money. Okay, so she invested in me to come and do this for her. But the display stand is actually very similar products. Some of them have disappeared, moved around. Okay. And it can make a massive difference to your display. It can be the difference between somebody walking past your stand and somebody stopping and looking. So this is your next activity. It's looking at spotting the difference between those two displays. So looking at how has Powder Butterfly, how has Corinne applied the 5-star principles, well, the principles that we kind of went through together, and then thinking about how you can apply them to your business. And that's the thing about having the camera. So at the time, I took a photograph, that before and after photograph, mainly for Corinne's point of view. It was just so that, like, well, this is what it looked like before, this is what it looked like afterwards. So, you know, she could see the difference and use that as a learning point and refer back to it. After that, she was like, you need to teach this stuff, you need to be a speaker, all of that. It kind of like erupted from here. And actually, I'm really grateful that I took those photographs, because I can now use it in the training. But what I'm saying is also for you to take photographs, because you will evolve. And sometimes you'll do a display that will be really good, and then later you'll forget how you did it. So take photographs every time you do a display, keep a record. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is take 5 minutes to look at this, look at the differences between the two displays. If you need to go off and have a break and grab a coffee as well, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And then when we come back into the room, we're going to compare the differences. Okay. How did you find that? Did you spot some of the differences? Yeah. So looking at it now, the less is more. We took some items away. We didn't have to put everything on there. Grouping. So we grouped it in different ways. We grouped it, first of all, by price. So if you think about, if you were to go into a shop, where would you expect to find the most expensive items? If there was a shelf, where would you expect to find the most expensive stuff? Would you find the most expensive stuff at the top or at the bottom of the shelf? So would the most expensive stuff be on the bottom shelf? Yeah, so I think you'll probably expect the cheapest stuff along the bottom, and as it moves up, the more expensive stuff at the top. So that's what we've done here. So the things that are at the front, the coasters, are part of the less expensive, you know, I was going to say the cheaper items. Then it goes to kind of medium priced, and then the stuff at the top, which has really been highlighted almost like a hero product, are the teapots. What Corinne has done since then is she has bought herself a turntable. It's actually a mirrored turntable that she can put the teapots on. So that's got movement, you know, when we talked about focal point. And it also meant that she could put one teapot on there, and the turntable meant that it moved around the display, but you could see the back of the design as well. You can see how we is grouped it, so as I say, by price, also by style, by design. So we've got, for example, all of the Bridges coasters together, all of the Angel coasters together, the square ones, the coloured ones, you know, the different types of materials. We've also used pyramids in here, so you can probably see several pyramid shapes if you follow through. You've got the three cups in the middle, but then you've got the coasters form triangles and pyramid shapes, or indeed the whole kind of display from the cups moving down, that's got lots of kind of triangles within triangles. And then the repetition, so we put the cups together. We used 3 cups and we displayed those together. And then it was about the focal point. So in the previous display, actually, I'm going to go back a few slides. So when you looked at this one, where did your eye start? What did you focus on first? And also, where did your eye stop looking? Because what we want to do is, with focal point, is almost take people on a journey around a picture, but get them to the eyes to kind of then rest somewhere. I think when you look at this picture, you're kind of looking all over the place. You haven't got a resting point. Whereas on this one, you might find that you start at a point. For me, it's kind of the tree, really. I think the illumination draws my eye in. But then I almost go on kind of like a semi circle spiral in reverse down, and then kind of rest round, come round to the t-shirts, and then rest in the middle. My eye kind of does a loop around, you know, so it's like, where are your eyes drawn to first on this display? But I think you'll find that from a focal point of view that it rests in this picture, whereas this one you're just kind of focusing all over the place. So that's about the 5-star standard.